All right, good morning, RootCon. Hoorah! First thing in the morning. And I'm so looking forward to the surprise that is coming mid-presentation. Or maybe multiple surprises. Ideally, not multiple surprises. By the way, that was not authorization for multiple surprises. Anyways, yeah, my name is Scott, and I used to be with CrowdStrike up until about 3 months ago, and decided to embark on a, unique journey to try and do my own thing. And Perils is the name of the company, but today we're going to talk about AI. That's the, basic genesis of what's being talked about all over the planet these days. Gen AI this, AI that, AI powered here. So let's talk about a world where AI is everywhere. Just again, I was here last year at RootCon with my colleague Aaron, who's once again also going to be presenting later today. I think last year we presented on kind of like the blurring of the lines between nation state and eCrime adversaries. So there's going to be a little bit of that in the presentation today, because it's actually quite applicable when it comes to AI conversations. But again, RootCon, Goons, thanks for having me. Especially honored to be up here to present during the keynote. This is pretty amazing. The audience looks amazing, and I figure before we actually get started, I should probably do a selfie. Got to do a selfie with this amazing crowd in the background. So one sec. Hoorah. All right, now we can get started. So, over the course of the next, 40 minutes or so, this is what we're going to go over. We're going to just kind of talk about a little bit of history on introduction, or a little introduction to AI, then kind of dive into, why is AI dangerous? Talk about some adversary use of AI. And then we're going to kind of go down a rabbit hole of how bad can it actually get. And then we'll land the airplane and bring it home. I don't know who's next, and somebody else will come up on stage and get drunk with shots. Hoorah. So, as always, got to start a presentation with a quote. And I thought this was a kind of important, or a very interesting quote in the context of AI, right? The greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. And I think that's kind of, where we are with AI today. We kind of have this impression that we know what we're doing with artificial intelligence, and all this, all the talk around Gen AI powering this, that, and the other thing. But maybe we don't actually have an idea as to what we're really talking about. Maybe we are just a bit ignorant at the end of the day, and not really thinking through a lot of what's going on, or what potentially could be happening. For today, I decided that I'm going to take a different approach, because I've actually spoken on Gen AI and AI leveraged by nation states, leveraged by eCrime adversaries. I've spoken about this topic a number of times over the course of the last year plus, but not in this context. So today, I'm going to be addressing this from the most perilous possibility that you can think of. Where AI does some really, really, really bad shit. Where it really changes the construct of the universe we live in. That's the approach for today. So, a lot of it isn't necessarily going to be practical, but I think it's definitely food for thought, and something that we really need to take into consideration when we're talking about using AI pretty much in every facet of our life. from refrigerators to phones, to cars, to security products, etc. So, I mean, everyone raise your hand if you're a movie fan. Who in the audience is a movie fan? Right? So a lot of you are movie fans. And how many movies these days and throughout the years have had AI as like the central focal point of the story? Yes, everything works out perfect. Always, always, always. I mean, here's like a popular example. Who doesn't know Terminator? Anyone in the audience have no idea who or what the Terminator is, other than the youngins in the front, which is totally acceptable? That's totally acceptable. All right, so everyone knows, right? And the whole story around, Skynet and, who attacked first, blah, 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 right? So that's like, there's like a whole series of Terminator movies designed around the idea that artificial intelligence and robots are basically trying to kill off the human race, right? Yeah, I think this is the other quote. In a panic, humans tried to shut it down, but Skynet was like, nope, ain't having none of that, and then launched the nukes. Anyone that watched Terminator 2 Judgment Day, you know exactly what we're talking about, right? And then another one. I mean, I guess I'll probably have to give the youngins a pass on the Matrix, but maybe not, seeing as there was a recent Matrix movie. I mean, but this is another one, right? Another prime example, which is all about artificial intelligence, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, there's a ton of movies out there. And I'm going to take these off because it's getting kind of annoying trying to actually see through these glasses. But, I mean, there's a ton of movies that have been out there. Anyone see Alien Romulus this year? Anyone? Alien Romulus? Yes? No? All right. So no one in the audience has seen Alien Romulus except for the youngins up until now. Completely reversed. That's awesome. So like even this year, 2024, we have artificial intelligence as like a major theme in a movie where actually artificial intelligence has been a theme in multiple Alien movies. And I'm not going to spoil for the youngins the original Alien when you end up seeing it. But again, there's artificial intelligence component to Alien. All right, so let's kind of just jump into the heart of the matter because, yeah, we know AI has been a huge component of pop culture. But what's interesting is like the integration of AI into all these devices, again, from your refrigerator to your car, to your phone, to your security devices, to, I don't know, you name it, it's going to be powered by AI. Everything's going to have some form of AI moving forward, right? And this notion, and this is actually, as we all know, this is the theme of this year's conference, convergence, right? And I don't know why that just decided to advance all on its own, but here we are. But like, the idea of convergence between physical and cyber is huge. It's already beginning to happen, but as we start thinking about how AI gets integrated into this picture of a converged cyber and physical world, it becomes pretty treacherous, right? The integration of AI, Gen AI in particular, in offensive cyber, like brings in a completely new era to the idea of the battlefield. You have the idea where everything is just blurred into one picture. Previously, or even today, a lot of the ways that wars are fought, cyber looks like cyber, physical looks like physical, but as this convergence occurs, it's gonna just kind of merge into a single picture, right? And the idea of AI being able to leverage exploits on the cyber side of the house, exploit vulnerabilities on the physical side of the house, and kind of manipulate all the bits and the bytes is going to have a devastating effect. It's almost like Icarus, where we're at the risk of overestimating our control over the powerful forces that AI brings to the table. In this new reality, cyber attack is no longer just cyber, as I just mentioned, right? It now has tangible effects both virtually and physically. You know, it could trigger a chain reaction of events that just spiral out of control. Today, with humans kind of in the loop, it's pretty easy to you know, have a human just hit the stop button. But when you have Gen AI and AI basically at the controls of all of this activity that's happening in cyberspace, particularly if we're thinking about this from, you know, a nation state perspective. I mean, in Terminator, Skynet launched nukes. So what's to say that something like that isn't actually a possibility in the future, because Gen AI and the AI, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? The AI, you know, race, for lack of a better word, is now afraid that it may end up being wiped out because humans are afraid of what it may do to it. So this convergence like actually forces us to rethink the nature of war and how it will be conducted, and it gives us, you know, some provoking thought points that we really need to be cognizant of when it comes to this convergence of physical and cyber. The traditional dichotomies of war, you know, that land, sea, air, cyber component, they no longer are valid. And this era where cyber conflict is omnipresent is basically what we're walking into. That is the precipice that we're on. We're almost at the Rubicon where we're going to cross it and there's not going to be any turning back. All right, so let's talk about some of the dangers that Gen AI poses. So there's a profound danger that's not only because of its capability to enhance offensive cyber operations, but it's also due to the unpredictability and the scale of the impact that Gen AI has on warfare. Unlike conventional cyber tools, you know, which are typically confined to, you know, very specific functions, Gen AI can autonomously evolve the methods that it's leveraging, the strategies that it's employing. And this means that AI could potentially be designed to disrupt a network and then develop unforeseen tactics that bypass defenses that humans never even thought were possible, because of that ability to like iterate so quickly. And this makes it exceptionally difficult for defenders to anticipate and then counter the threats of an attack that's being perpetrated by Gen AI. The ability of Gen AI to even learn like constantly as it's, you know, conducting attacks and refine those attack vectors poses a continuous and escalating challenge for everyone, but especially for those that are trying to, you know, thwart and defend those attacks. You know, with every successful breach, with every failed breach, the AI is going to adapt. It's going to find new vulnerabilities, new exploits, and even though security teams are going to be, you know, trying to patch those vulnerabilities, AI is just going to be able to exploit them far quicker than teams are going to be able to conduct patches. This rapid evolution basically creates a scenario where the defender is essentially perpetually on their back feet, always trying to play catch up. So the implications of this are pretty terrifying, because in the worst case scenario, think about like Gen AI that could be used to employ and automate escalated cyber attacks, right? And it can do this at a scale that we've never seen before. Think about a situation where it's attacking critical infrastructure, like maybe electricity, like a power company, or maybe like a bank, or a series of banks. Could even be military assets. If you hit all of this at once with Gen AI, it could essentially like, you know, tear the fabric of society apart, because AI-powered adversaries will potentially be striking without any warning whatsoever. It will just, one day you're going to the bank, you're trying to stick your card into the ATM machine, and then like all of a sudden bad shit's happening. Your money's gone. Like, you know, And then you turn around and the buses that are, being powered by automated drivers, now they're like, crashing into each other. It's, the idea that AI can create so much havoc as we continue to converge and, mix cyber with physical is just terrifying. And then part of the other problem with this is the opacity of AI decision making. This is like often referred to as the black box problem. That really compounds the problems with AI. Because when an AI generates an attack, its actions may not necessarily be understood by all of us. Like, we may have no idea because we can't perceive why it would do what it's doing. So that's a huge issue that researchers are currently looking at, that idea of the black box problem. And this unpredictability can lead to unintended consequences, such as escalation of conflict beyond control or beyond where a nation state may have wanted it to go, and it can just exacerbate a situation in ways that we can't even imagine today. So as Gen AI continues to evolve, we got to be, aware that we're playing with a force that's capable of rapidly slipping out of our control. I mean, that's the whole point of the movies that I mentioned in the beginning, right? It's man created AI for AI to be helpful, and then in turn, AI is now trying to destroy mankind because mankind had the illusion that it knew what it was doing when in fact it actually did not. Yes, come on, technical difficulties. There we go. And then so some of the dangerous AI threats that we can talk about, think about like an AI enhanced bioweapon engineering situation. Right now, engineering bioweapons takes time. It takes a lot of effort because iteration takes, substantial amount of actual time. Contrast that with AI, where all of those iterations can happen in silico. So it can happen in a matter of seconds. The amount of iterations that we humans can do for bioweapons engineering and research and development takes years. But AI can compress those years or those decades into minutes or even seconds. And because of that, the lethality of these bioweapons can be so much more devastating than what we're used to today. How about automated IA warfare systems, cyber warfare systems, where IA is autonomously conducting warfare, full spectrum cyber warfare. So it's doing the whole thing. It's creating the malware, it's launching the attacks, it's exploiting 0 days, it's adapting defenses in real time, zero human intervention required whatsoever, all the attacks being conducted by AI. And the destruction here, again, going back to the theme of convergence, will not just be you can't get into your bank account or shit, I can't load that TikTok that I really wanted to see. It's not going to be that. It's going to be devastating physical effects, especially, as I said, like if you have, say, autonomous buses that are, transporting people across the city's infrastructure. If those are attacked, we're not talking about just physical destruction. Now we're talking about potential lives being lost. AI-driven mass psychological manipulation. I mean, there's a lot of mass psychological manipulation going on today, and here we are. This is tough. right, that's always fun. Woo! No more necessary. Once is enough. If that was just like a single shot, it would have been all right, but that was literally like half that goblet. Jesus, what a way to start a morning. Thanks, guys. All right, where was I? Mass psychological manipulation. Who in the audience doesn't think they're being psychologically manipulated today? Anyone? All right, good. Everyone knows you're being psychologically manipulated. That's amazing. I mean, like, you're being psychologically manipulated every day, but think about this in the context of where AI is able to learn all about you and tailor that manipulation to you individually, to the youngins in the front individually, to the folks in the back, rather than just like on the scale that it happens now, you know, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter or X or whatever the hell it's called today, you know, that's one thing. But when AI is able to, you know, drive campaigns that manipulate people into, like, you know, rejecting things like vaccines, which, you know, are already happening, but think about that tailored component, or causing global health crises, triggering violent uprisings, it's endless. Like, that is another, you know, pretty dangerous capability of AI. One that I think people don't really think about and probably sounds, well, not probably sounds, it's highly conceptual, is the idea of like synthetic reality overwrite. So with advancements in Gen AI, the creation of entirely synthetic realities becomes quite plausible, right? Imagine AI fabricating convincing alternative realities from what we're living in today and altering digital records, creating synthetic memories, manipulating media to such an extent that what each and every one of you believe, you can no longer kind of distinguish between what's actually real and what's fabricated. Again, to a certain extent that's happening today, but with Gen AI, it could be weaponized to erase historical events, to rewrite cultural narratives, or to even fabricate large-scale events that never even occurred. I mean, again, there's an extent to that happening today with, you know, truthers and all the crazy shit that happens on Twitter, but this is a reality that is coming. And then the last one that I'll just touch on briefly, which kind of is a no-brainer, is the idea of, you know, AI-controlled autonomous weapon systems, where the AI, rather than a human like me that's sitting at, you know, like a station where I'm manning, you know, big 50 cal guns or whatnot, now it's all being done by AI, and AI is making decisions. And the ability for AI to kind of discern between what's actually something dangerous versus not is an area where we're going to be going towards. So these threats, they're not just fragments of science fiction. This is like a tangible reality that will be coming. You know, to a certain extent, I think those movies, you know, obviously very fiction oriented, will in some way, shape, or form in the future have an element of nonfiction when looked back upon, you know, maybe a decade from now, considering how fast Gen AI and AI in general are advancing. All right, let's talk briefly about adversary capabilities. Assuming I can actually remember what I'm supposed to say on the next slides now that the vodka is starting to hit. Jesus. Hoorah. The fun times at RootCon. I mean, the idea of, like with anything else, the idea of adversaries leveraging AI just amplifies their ability to conduct attacks far more effectively, far more efficiently, and with far more devastating effect, right? Like the output or the outcomes of these attacks are going to be unimaginable when we look at them in the future. And this kind of, you know, changes or, you know, It's a paradigm shift where it changes the balance of power in cyber conflicts. So let's talk about, you know, the nation state usage of Gen AI. So, I mean, it does more than enhance the existing capabilities. It actually revolutionizes a new landscape of cyber conflict. Again, blurring the lines between reality and fabrication. So there's a number of, you know, ideas that are here on the screen, right? Like, I think I kind of touched upon the psychological manipulation on the previous slides, and that's, you know, again, happening to an extent today, but not necessarily with AI. So, you know, think about all the shenanigans and the nonsense that's going on with the elections around the world, and, you know, all the information warfare, information operations that are taking place around that. That's all done by humans today, generally speaking, right? In the future, it's going to be done by AI, which means they're going to learn from their mistakes far quicker, it's going to iterate in real time, and it's going to be able to not just adapt, but again, like I mentioned previously, it's going to be tailored. So your partner that's sitting next to you at your seat may get one series of you know, psychological content that's trying to, you know, make them think one way, and you're going to get something completely different. Maybe there's some overlap, yeah, but the goal that Gen AI brings to the table is the ability to transform based on who's being targeted, right? Each victim is going to have a unique set of strategies that are targeting them. Autonomous, you know, AI espionage networks. I mean, right now, again, humans are the ones conducting the espionage. But think about situations where Gen AI is now able to conduct espionage, like, you know, esoterically in the background. When you have humans doing it, it's fairly obvious, right? I mean, not fairly obvious, but it's easier to distinguish what a human does versus what AI does. And, you know, AI being more advanced, being able to capture all of that data that it captures, make decisions in real time, and pivot and adapt those strategies, especially at like on the espionage side, is going to be kind of game changing. Synthetic persona generation is really about like AI being able to create new personas on the fly. So having, you know, spies always have, like, I hate to use the word spy, but I mean, it's probably a you know, an easy word that everyone understands what I'm talking about. But, you know, when spies are in the field doing, you know, human-based spying, human-based espionage, you know, they have backstories, right? They have papers to show that the companies they work for are legit. You know, there's an entire legitimacy that sits behind them, because if they don't have that, then it's quite easy to be outed. Now, think about AI being able to just generate that on the fly, having access to legal networks to be able to create those legal documents, you know, in a matter of seconds, and then spit that out and be able to pretend or, you know, kind of counteract or act rather as a human. This is all going to be completely autonomous in the future. Certainly humans are going to have an element in this, but Gen AI is going to play a major role in this. And then automated legal warfare, I think, for me, is an interesting one. And this is where Gen AI essentially weaponizes the court system for multiple reasons, but, you know, one is to just overload it with so many cases and so many legal challenges, that actual real-world legal challenges that need to be faced or that need to be addressed are not going to be addressed, and it's just going to kind of rip society apart, because major issues are not going to be able to have, you know, any kind of resolution as a result of this. And then I think like dynamic infrastructure subversion is probably fairly obvious. I mean, if you're kind of catching on to the thread here, the thread throughout everything that I've talked about is all about adaptability and being able to pivot and create on the fly. And that's essentially what we're talking about here is, an AI system that's able to create automated adversary infrastructure or dynamically reconfigure existing infrastructure to really confuse the victims or the enemy. It's just a kind of game-changing way of conducting warfare that we're not used to today. Today, it requires human intervention. It takes time. But again, in the future, it's something that's going to happen at, amazing speeds. And that's the nation-state side of the house. Now, in the near future, and we're going to talk about eCrime for a moment, in the near future, ransomware attacks, they could probably end up transcending, the simplistic notion of, monetary extortion, and maybe transform this into like a powerful tool for coercion and manipulation. Similar to like Inception, where, the protagonists were planting ideas. Wait, who doesn't know Inception? I guess I should make sure. Okay, yeah, youngins, you get a pass. All right, so everyone knows Inception. So like think about like Inception, where Leonardo DiCaprio and his crew, they were planting ideas deep within inside their target subconscious, right, to alter the actions towards the goal that they were trying to achieve. And AI-driven ransomware can do just that, right? It wouldn't merely demand just a ransom, but we're talking about compelling individuals like yourselves, or maybe the corporations or your overlords within those corporations, to perform specific actions that align with the eCrime adversaries' broader objectives. Certainly their primary objective is revenue generation, but maybe they're also, because of that blurring of the lines, working on behalf of or within some nation-state context, and then now, because of the way that they've just deployed this ransomware, they're now essentially trying to reshape reality itself, not just, through a ransomware action, but through multiple courses of action that surround the ransomware deployment. Think about a situation where ransomware infiltrates a multinational, but instead of encrypting the data and demanding, payment, it has like a more insidious ultimatum. Manipulate the stock prices to benefit some like hidden player in the background in the market, or secretly sabotage a competitor's new product launch. There's all kinds of very interesting ways where AI can start to, subtly influence as opposed to just being focused on the obvious ransomware component. And then like the AI is, potentially able to analyze the company's entire digital footprint because they're already on the network, right? So they have access to the entire estate, and then they can, start analyzing the confidential emails to financial records to identifying the most effective leverage points. Because let's be honest, every major company's got skeletons in the closet. And if you got AI that's pulling all that data together, it's going to be able to find that dirty laundry. And then, basically just using that to coerce organizations into doing things that they shouldn't do. How about, like a government agency that's been compromised by ransomware that's demanding the enactment of policy reversal? It doesn't want payment. It wants policies to be reversed. Maybe it's, breaking treaties, or, saying, hey, we're gonna, remove our diplomats from an upcoming, major conference. So ransomware, is not just going to be used in the future as a tool for financial gain, but also a tool for political gain. It'll kind of act as an invisible hand that's really like guiding the course of nations without ever revealing like who's potentially behind it, right? So this is kind of like a, chilling evolution of ransomware that I don't think, is really being thought out, because we think of ransomware as a tool that's solely leveraged by eCrime adversaries who are looking for a quick buck. Hey, come on, technical difficulties. Or maybe it's the vodka. So I don't want to spend too much time on this slide because it really is just kind of a rehashing and kind of a summary of what I just said on the two previous slides. It's really about, like, in this kind of dystopian future, the lines between nation state and eCrime are just increasingly indistinct. Like, if you have ransomware that's being deployed for, the potential for policy reversal reasons, or you have nation states, trying to manipulate for, psychological reasons, this all plays together. It could be used interchangeably almost. It's a situation that's not too dissimilar from another movie reference, Blade Runner 2049. Youngins probably haven't seen Blade Runner 2049. Anyone in the audience not seen Blade Runner 2049? Okay, good. Everyone's like a movie watcher. I like this, except for the youngins, but probably haven't had an opportunity to see it yet. Yeah, I'm sure you watch movies, but probably not Blade Runner 2049. You watch what? Oh, I mean, Transformers is all right, and that's AI, right? Maybe I should weave Transformers into my storyline here somehow. Iterate on the fly like AI, right? So like in Blade Runner 2049, the boundary between humans and replicants was fading, right? The distinction between political and criminal motivations are going to blur in much the same way that distinction, is blurring in the movie. And then in this reality, the convergence is basically ransomware becoming a very versatile tool. Maybe it's the natural evolution of where nation states and eCrime adversaries are going, is that ransomware won't necessarily be used for financial gain, but it'll be like a multifaceted tool. It'll be like the Swiss Army knife of Gen AI malware in the future. All right, talk about the road to the apocalypse. And I think this is really where we start talking about kind of the, we've been talking about a number of things up until now, but this is where we really kind of get into the post-truth era. So like altering the human consciousness, right? And bending our perception of what's real is ultimately, where we're going. So the greatest Jesus, yeah. Thank you guys for that vodka. Hoorah. The greatest danger of Gen AI isn't in its potential for visible destruction. It's really in its ability to fundamentally distort all of our perceptions of reality. So imagine an AI so powerful, it manipulates every single piece of information that you're consuming. Maybe I'm Gen AI or some form of AI. Maybe I'm manipulating you. I don't know. But think about that, and it can create a really fractured world where truth becomes like a relic of the past. Hence why I said the post-truth era, right? Reality is just a projection of our deepest fears and desires. AI at this point wouldn't really need weapons or armies. Its wars are going to be fought in the shadows of our own minds and using deception as that ultimate weapon. It's not going to need malware, right? Envision a future where Gen AI permeates every aspect of your digital existence, from news to social, crafting all kinds of narratives that are indistinguishable from reality. I mean, to a certain extent that's happening today, but that's with humans powering it, not Gen AI. So, this is not just a fear of being misled, but ultimately losing our entire grip on reality. Gen AI is some, sorry, sorry, youngins, Gen AI is some scandalous shit as we move into the future. It's just going to get worse. Now, I like it because it's, helpful for, certain tasks, but it's going to be quite scandalous. And seeing as I only have a few minutes to land the plane, we're just going to kind of briefly go through the next couple sets of slides. I mean, at the end of the day, the difference again between nation states and eCrimes and even hacktivists, conducting cyber attacks in the Gen AI age is going to be like navigating a labyrinth, where every path is deliberately obscured and constantly changing. So again, we can go back to the movie Inception and like those architectural changes that were occurring in Inception. Think about that, but in the Gen AI age where everything is just constantly changing and reality is ultimately an illusion that seamlessly blends together Gen AI that enables adversaries to mask their true intentions. That is where we are going, believe it or not. So yeah, at the end of the day, trying to figure out or understand like who's responsible for an attack is just going to be completely insane. It's going to be very, very difficult. All right, so to conclude things within the couple minutes I have left, so, we're on the precipice of digital Armageddon. I know that probably, sounds hyperbolic, but I think, in a few years you may agree with that statement. Like the rapid advancement in Gen AI is going to lead to, once again, scandalous shit. So, just a few things that I'll touch on here. The machines, like in the Matrix, are going to be our overlords, creating all of this content that's digitally manipulating you, that's changing narratives, and humans need to realize that we have to control our fate. This goes back to that illusion of knowledge quote at the beginning by Stephen Hawking. So we need to get a handle and a grip on this before reality collapses. Otherwise, not to sound all end of worldish and whatnot, but Gen AI could quite possibly herald the end of humanity. Now, there's probably a few things that we can do to, or implement in order to, put some checks and balances on AI. So there are responsible, methods for, making sure that AI doesn't just, take over the world, right? So there needs to be some transparency standards for artificial intelligence and Gen AI in particular. One of the more important things is bias auditing. That really needs to be looked at. Like there needs to be regular, audits of Gen AI systems to really understand that black box problem. Understand why AI makes the decision that it makes. Like why did it decide to attack that bank over there when that bank didn't do anything? Or why did it decide to take the, cut the power off over here when that particular nation didn't do anything? Right? We need responsibility when it comes to artificial intelligence and in particular, generative AI. Because, at the end of the day, I don't know, maybe we're already in the Matrix. Maybe we're already being fed a bunch of misinformation. Maybe we're already just sitting here being told all kinds of stuff that makes absolutely no sense just to confuse us, and we just need to be woken up like Neo was woken up in the Matrix and see the reality for what it's worth. So with that, that's where I end. Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.